Welcome y bienvenidos to yet another episode of Love Learning You. I'm your hostess, Justine González, and I'm very excited to feature this voice that I have sitting right here with me on Zoom today, Mr. Bryan Saint Louis. His main buckets he focuses on, he's an international speaker on topics concerning leadership, radical empathy, and so much more. But his background includes roles as a teacher, administrator, pastor, and leadership coach. I believe you're an incredible father, husband, but I believe you also were a bodybuilder at one point. Is that, I don't want to put people on blast, but I am. But you hold a degree in theology from Andrews University, among other credentials and certifications. But most of all, you are known for promoting radical empathy and transformational leadership, especially in how you pour into the youth, not only across Canada, which is where you reside, but also globally. I know you were all over the world this past summer, but I want to introduce you all to Mr. Bryan Saint Louis. Not only has he been a colleague, friend of mine for years, it has just been a pleasure because I start with giving our guests their flowers. It has been a pleasure to see you grow and also have somebody who will be honest with me and has seen my journey through the years too. So I just want to say thank you. And also, I'm just excited to have you here. I know we both had a lot of lifing the past 4 or 5 years. So come say hello to our audience.
Oh man, Justine, thank you very much. Number one, for just for who you are as a person. You've been such a great friend. You've been such a just someone who I've been using this terminology of soundboard lately, where we just are able to bounce ideas off of each other, and but also again see the growth from one another, and absolutely just really appreciate you as a person. But then also that was probably one of my favorite introductions I've ever had
Oh,
before.
oh yay!
Yeah. Thank you very much for that as well. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to jumping into the discussion.
Awesome. Well, here at Love Learning You, we talk about things of awareness, emotional awareness, cultural awareness, how we learn to love ourselves more. A journey I am devoted to and have been my whole life. Um, I want to start with cultural connectors. This is just a few culture questions. And again, so we're all rooted in the same understanding before we listen and talk further. Culture is our norms, our beliefs, our values, the language we use, the symbols that are important to us, how we message ourselves. It is not just the things we eat, the music we listen to. Those are connecting points and things that speak about our beliefs and norms, maybe, but there may be not an exploration into the deeper parts of that. So that's what we intend to do. But we start out with some light cultural connectors. And the first question is a simple one. You are an international speaker. Do you ever walk on stage to a song when you're introduced, or no? Or come
Uh,
out to a song? And if you do, what song do you come out to?
I haven't I don't think I've ever come out to a oh no, I have. I have. They asked me one time what song that I wanted to come out to, and the song was I chose I think We Are Invincible, Unstoppable, whatever that's Champions. It's some
We
champion
are
song.
the champion.
No, not that.
Oh,
It's like
it's
we
like
are
Brian. I don't know
invincible.
if that suits you, but
It's like we are invincible,
uh,
unstoppable. Yeah, something
oh
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, because they said they had that already, and I was just like, yeah, just sure, put that up. Because if not, yeah, I would have to think about what song I would want to do. And besides that, I was like, no, I'm not thinking too much about that. So, but now I need to actually have something in my repertoire because that would be good to have. Yeah.
Would you ever do something like "All I Do Is Win," or is that too corny?
Nah, I don't know. I wouldn't do
It's a bit
that. I
overdone
wouldn't do
through the years.
it. I will say I do so when I do like programming with some of my youth, I do use this. I know he's a little bit off the rails right now, but I do use that one song from Kanye. It's I
Like
don't use lyrics
all the
though. I
lights.
just no, I use the song um uh Touch the Sky. Touch the
Oh,
Sky.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That's the instrumental, just the instrumental. So yeah, that's probably the closest thing that I'll probably use, honestly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, next question, rapid fire. What is on your bookshelf right now? And I tell people all the time, like, look, when I say bookshelf, it might be a book I pick up here and then another one that I study over here. It depends on my mood. Are you
Yeah.
just a one book at a time kind of guy?
I typically tend to become a one book at a time kind of person because it just helps out. I'm reading a Maxwell leadership book right now.
Okay,
Uh, and it's just like the levels of leadership or something of that nature. I forgot the exact title.
nice.
But again, working with leadership programs and going into so many different schools with that, it's just I want to always put myself with best practices of leadership. So that's
Yep,
one of the books I'm reading right now.
nice. Um, Time travel. Whether
I'm
you
trying.
whether you believe in it or not, we're gonna pretend that we're time traveling.
Sure, sure, sure. You got this. I have
And
this.
go go back in time to when you were about 8 or 9 years old. So say we go back, all of us, listeners, viewers, we're all going back to when Bryan was 8 or 9 years old. So we'll be around that same age as him. If we were hanging out with you, we're done playing outside and stuff, and it's like time to eat dinner. And we got to come over and have dinner with Bryan and his family. What would we be eating? What was your favorite meal and why?
What would we be eating and what is my favorite meal are two different things, but
Okay, okay, okay. Well, then
what
humor
would we be
us.
eating
Humor
is
us.
just rice,
Okay.
sauce pois. Uh, sauce pois is just a Haitian dish. Um, like veggies and possibly fish like that. Like a
Okay.
big. When I say rice though, the whole plate is rice. Just a whole big plate of rice, or what you call maï moulin. Sometimes we eat maï moulin, but typically speaking, at night, it's just you got a whole big plate of rice, and then you have some du sauce pois on top, and then some legume, and that was pretty much a dish that we would eat for sure. Yeah.
También cada semana arroz con frijoles. So for me, every week, and then you eat it leftover 3 times.
That's it. That's it.
My mom, my Amish background mom, she learned how to make it just like how my dad liked it.
Wow. There you
So
go.
then when we'd have leftovers too, we would also do white rice with ketchup, which is a very Puerto Rican, Puerto Rican Americanized thing through the years on the island.
That's
Um,
good.
okay, so we would be eating incredible rice dishes with legumes, vegetables, etc. And did you ever have any sweet treats that you liked or no? Was sugar not a this is an interesting question. I guess I haven't really asked guests this before, but culturally, I think it depends, and especially depending on if you grew up in the States or not, like it really matters to maybe how much sugar and sweets.
We
Um,
didn't eat a lot of sweets in my house
yeah,
growing up.
we
We
did.
had some stuff, but we didn't have a lot, typically speaking. It was a lot of like savory, salty food that we ate for the
Yep.
most part. We didn't really eat sweets like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I don't think we always had dessert. We had like little Debbie stuff sometimes, but not like every meal wasn't dessert at the
Fair
end.
enough. Okay.
Um, okay. And then if you could be any animal or plant for a day, what would you be
Lion.
and why? Oh, a
Lion.
lion.
Yeah. Quick. It's quick. That
Okay.
was that's my favorite animal. It just there's a level of laziness that I also take from it. Uh, just to be honest, but
Tempered.
uh,
When you watch lions,
and
it's like I'm okay with it. It's not lazy to
100%.
me.
For me, it's like lackadaisical living. Like, like you could
Ah.
just relax a little bit. Well, not lackadaisical actually, but relaxed living. But the thing about the lion, which people, they'll be like, how is that the king of the when it's time to be on pursuit, nothing stops it. And that's how
Mm.
I feel. So yes, sometimes it's time to relax. I gotta chill. I'm not about, doing everything all the time. I have to need the time to recuperate.
Oh,
But when it's time to go, I don't feel like anything can stop me. And so it's very much that pursuit aspect of life. Just I'm always on it. So when I'm on it, there's no going back. Yeah.
That's powerful. That's a powerful analogy. I wonder how many of you all listening or watching comment or just respond or think within yourself. How many of us move that way and what motivates us to move or not take action? What would you tell people? This is a follow-up to that, Bryan.
Yeah.
What would you tell people who have maybe struggled with more anxious tendencies, which have been more kind of my MO through the years? Of like that it's harder actually for some of us to sit still. I've gotten way better at it. My partner, my longtime partner, Mr.
Yeah.
Scott, good about balancing me with it. But what would you say to people who struggle? Because I kind of wonder, has that typically been kind of how you move? And for those of us who maybe that's not innate to us, is
Mm.
that been something you've had to develop where you're okay with, hey, I need to recharge my batteries? Or is that just something that's part of who you are?
I I I believe I needed to create that for me because
Okay.
I used to believe that I had to outperform everyone,
Yeah.
and and if and if I'm not performing, I have no value.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
so
mhm, mhm.
and I believe it stemmed from my childhood ultimately, that there's a certain point of life that I thought that how I was or what I did earned the love. And
Yep.
so I was
Same.
constantly doing in order for me to receive.
Yep.
Once I got to the place where I loved myself more so than anything else, and more well outside of God, to be honest,
Right.
I realized like, okay, I have to be okay with the time to recuperate, to rejuvenate, to spend more time with just that introspective thought, to develop me first, because as I'm better, I'll be better for other people. And so
Right.
so very much so, it's something that I had to learn to develop this level of recuperation, of learning to recluse yourself and not always be around the people, around individuals, or
Yeah.
have to perform for
The
sure.
noise. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching says, doing nothing is doing something.
Mm.
And that I think it speaks volumes. There's a lot of
Yeah.
disconnection, distraction, and division in the world. And I think both because we are both millennials in the millennial generation, we've grown up with that, but we also grew up with like typewriters and the ushering, like beepers and pagers and like seeing all of that. And now it's like, I mean, 20 years ago, like now kids don't
That's
know what a
insane.
Walkman or a Discman is.
No, that's no.
Yeah, but like we were in that era where it's still like, yeah, but we also knew what 8 tracks were because our grandparents might have had them, or even our parents, maybe from our grandparents. Like people were more like we were just moving as fast, and part of that's technology, and that's not all bad. But I think it's made it even harder for especially our young people coming up to just be okay to be with themselves and to be exactly who they are. It's made it harder.
A lot of them don't know time without noise. They
Ooh,
So everything is constantly buzzing within their ears. Like when you think about when they're home, parents are talking, or the internet is talking,
mm.
or their cell phone is talking. So there's always something that's
Now
speaking.
Alexa, Siri, chat.
Alexa, anything. You go to school, your friends are talking, your teachers are talking, everyone. There's they I know why I'm gonna look up this study because I actually don't even know this number, but the more I'm speaking on it now, I'm pretty sure they spend way more time of the day, uh, and probably 90% of their time listening to something than actually sitting still. And because most of them, I remember I had a conversation with one of these teens not too long ago, and she was saying that space, like time that doesn't have noise, makes her feel anxious. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's
Oh,
it's
that was me in my 20s.
Well, there you go.
I took my first solo vacation, like truly solo, was not just flying alone to go visit a friend or something, to the Bay Area when I was a vice principal doing turnaround work in Chicago public schools. And I was so burnt out. I was
Mm,
able to ask for 3 days off for the spring break. And I went to the Bay Area because I had never been there. I
mm.
had my phone shut off. I had everything shut off. I did not take a laptop. And when I say it was one of the low, I hate, oh, you're getting me to admit this and tell on myself again on air. When I think, but it's really, really good because I haven't actually even examined this until this moment. The depth, I felt such incredible loneliness
Mm.
because to go into schoolwork too, and I loved school as a kid, even though I was bullied some, I still loved school. I'd still like
Yeah,
I was the eternal optimist and I would find something good about it.
yeah.
And but I'm saying this to say, I'm saying this to validate anybody listening or watching, that was me as a professional 27-year-old woman with multiple degrees
I see.
that I felt like the most alone person in the world, but I was also having fun and feeling
Mm.
like a kid at the same time, like, oh, I can just go explore whenever I want. I can sleep however late I want, like not being dictated by somebody else's schedule
Right,
either.
that's right. That's right. That's powerful. That's powerful. That's
Have
real.
did you have you had those ahas then as you've developed the skill that we're kind of talking about of being more present? That like, do you have any aha moments like that as an adult? Because most people then I even talk to and they're like, that's crazy that you even wanted to just go by yourself somewhere. And I'm like, well, no, it wasn't.
Not crazy at all. I don't know if trying to I've had moments. I don't know if I've had long periods of time like that, but I've definitely had moments where I would be like, I remember being in Germany and I didn't have anything that I needed to do for like those that day, and I just pretty much sat in this like botanical garden the whole day.
Yes. Yep.
I
That's
was like,
what I do on
um,
trips too. That kind of
yeah, I
now
literally
I
sat
do.
there. It was just beautiful,
Yeah.
and I was talking to God. I saw certain things about Genesis 3 that I never saw before, and I was just
Mhm.
like, man, like this was necessary for my own personal development, and but you wouldn't have been able to find that with all the noise. And so yeah, there's definitely a piece. And I know it may scare some people because our thoughts, when we allow our thoughts to basically open up in such a way, it opens up a lot of brokenness. It opens up different pathways that we have to remember now from our past, and sometimes it's uncomfortable to sit with that, but the more and more we're able to be introspective and be able to sit with ourselves, we're now able to heal through or to process through the pains, the struggles, the difficulties in order for us to grow better into the person that we desire to become. And especially if we're working with youth, we're working with, especially the younger minds,
Yeah.
we need to be the example of healing. We need to be the example of demonstrating how to overcome the inner being.
Yeah.
Because if we want them to be at their best capacity, and this is why I always tell people, like, sometimes you don't even know what's going on in their lives. We
Mm-mm.
automatically assume that there's a certain level of ease that's happening with them because they're younger, because they're youth. That I realized when I was about 25 years old. No, even younger, excuse me, when I was at the juvie, when I was 21, I realized that there are some kids who are 10 years old who've had a 10 times harder life than me.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
And and I'm just like, how did this happen by 10 years old? And I thought I struggled,
Yeah.
but I didn't have, a parent that wasn't in my life. I didn't have people who abused me constantly since I was 3 years old. I didn't have, some of the stories that I heard. I don't even want to share it necessarily on this, but the amount that I've seen youth go through, it it pushed me into that whole radical empathy
Yep.
mind frame because if not, it's like how else are we supposed to be able to help them? And so in order for us to do that, we have to be at a place where we first deal with the stuff that's going on with ourselves.
Right. That was perfectly said. And I say no to that too because I don't typically, I've shared a little bit about my first year in the room, one of my students being murdered.
I
But
see.
other than that, like, and not other than that, right? That's actually a lot of teachers have dealt with that. That
Yeah.
is not like a big thing, anomaly, honestly, if you work in a lot of districts across the United States.
Yep.
It feels unfortunate to say that, but this is a caveat I give people because I do some stuff with media through the years and have written for some different newspaper outlets and stuff through the years since I started teaching. And one thing I like to remind people who are educators and working with youth in general, so especially youth pastors too.
Mm,
Um, Children don't come to you getting to choose the environment that they're in when they're children.
I see.
None of us chose our path as far as who we would necessarily be born to, all those things, right? This is all miraculous that we're here. But then on top of it, when you have those realizations, what drove me to want to get a PhD and focus on cultural neuroscience, cultural psychology. These are newer branches of psychology and neuroscience in the past 15 years. I wanted to do it through the school-based lens because regardless of what I was seeing, the thing that actually hurt the most in my early 20s was that I had, and to this day, I had family and friends who they just don't believe me.
I
They,
see.
they don't believe the stories. And it doesn't matter. So I think if anything, it does matter in the respect of when I had that realization, I think it bore in me like a more righteous anger
Mm,
to keep going and fighting. But that has also shifted through the years too, because it's like, okay, but that's also not empathy. It might be righteous, it might be anger that fuels, but that's not empathy. But that is, I think, what happens to some of us as educators and people who work with youth is that we then end up feeling really lonely because we feel like the people we love most who should understand us best they don't even believe that these people, real children, exist. And it's the same type of stuff I see with the Israel and Palestine conflict, the Israel trying to occupy Palestine that belongs to Palestinian people. But what would you say to that? So when we're being met with, and we're already going here, and I got a couple other questions that have to do with this same lane. And because you do speak about radical empathy, my entire frameworks are built around cultural empathy.
yeah.
And it's something that I also own and admit to people like I've worked at my whole life. And in some ways, I didn't have a choice, right? Especially depending on where you grow up and who you're born to. I had to learn how to code switch from the time I was born. Like that was real in my household and with Amish and Puerto Rican relatives. And so I think that what I see most that is really, really hurting educators and students both is that we just aren't believing people.
Mm,
And sometimes I just scratch my head and go, why would I share anything? Like, why would anybody want to share pain that's not real? But nobody wants to share these things that are hurtful.
mm.
But then, so what would you say to people when they go, I've had this experience, or I work with kids and I see this trauma? They know that then we're going home to a nicer life. We have
Yeah.
our degrees, we have money. We're not meeting those same things. So I don't know. What would you say to people who are going through that and they go, I just like my husband doesn't even believe me, or my sister doesn't even believe me, or my own parents don't believe me. What would you say to people who experience
So
that?
I just want to be, you talking about the youth, or are you asking me now, what would I say to the person who doesn't believe, or what would I say to the person who's not being believed?
Ooh, let's do both.
Let's do
Let's do
both. Okay.
both.
The person who's not being believed first. Number one, uh, I feel for you because I think we've all been in situations where we have not been believed, where
Every human, every
we've
human.
shared information, and and I remember even like telling someone that was really close to me information about a youth and her sister. And I didn't share names, but I told her, I said, man, this is some of the situations that have come to me, and her response was, a sister would never do that to another sister.
Ooh,
And I said, how do you know this? Because you're not in their house, you're not in their situation, you don't even know who I'm talking about. The only thing that you came to the realization of is a sister wouldn't do that to another sister due to your perception of life, because your sister would never do that to you, at least you assume. Because again, anyone can do anything. I am under the belief that anyone can do anything. Most
yep,
people are, we don't have a proclivity to do everything, but anyone can do anything.
yes.
But but at that moment, that's when I realized, I was like, wow, people, and this was when I was about 21 or even younger. I might have been 20 or 21. And that's when I realized, people won't always believe everybody's story.
Mhm.
It's happened to me, where I share information. I mean, even, close to home, share information of things that have happened. And it's like, did it really happen like that though? And I'm like, Yes, it
And you're
did.
like, I know it sounds unbelievable, but I truly couldn't make this up.
Yeah. Why would I want to make this up? Like,
Oh,
but,
exactly.
but all that to say, at the end of the day, when we're not being believed, it it doesn't deteriorate from the story. It doesn't actually remove from the story because someone else is unbelieved. That doesn't now make it that the story is not true.
Yeah.
And we don't have to hold on to the harbor to get more pain because someone chooses not to believe our story. And so it's basically, I always say it this way. It's like unforgiveness is drinking poison, hoping that the other person it dies from it.
Yeah.
The only person who will get hurt from that is us.
Yeah.
We're the only one. Like that's why it's so important for us to make sure that we're finding healing, because we can't control what other people do.
No, no.
I teach this in schools. I do a lot of speaking around this. You can never control what someone else chooses to do, think, or say. What you are always in control of are your thoughts, your actions, and your mouth. And so how we choose to proceed from that is all up to our choice. And again, it's not easy in any way, shape, or form, but someone's lack of belief does not make the story untrue. To the
Thank
person who's not believing,
you. Hmm.
this might be a question that I'll end up talking about at some point if you end up bringing this up anyway. Um, Media literacy. This might sound really weird, but media literacy, I think, is one of the greatest gifts that we have been given, and people are not using it.
Yes.
It's like they're shown stories of all these little animals and wild robots and Lion King and all these stories that are being given to us, and we sit down, we watch these stories, and we empathize with these characters, and we're looking at robots and we're looking at chipmunks.
Sorry, I just literally
No,
got a mental picture of the minions. Okay, sorry.
no, sir, no. Sit down with minions.
Right.
Sit down with whatever, and you're sitting there. You're like, oh, I feel bad for the minions.
Oh,
That story is literally not true. And yet we can still empathize with a minion. We can empathize with a wild robot. But you know what is true is the themes that are derived from those stories,
the feeling.
the
Yes.
feelings that come from those stories. The creators, the people who set up these stories, they found a way to bring in real human life interactions and life situations and put it in a way that is now making it more comfortable for us to be able to see and to basically internalize. Because we can empathize with a chipmunk, but we won't empathize with a child who's in Palestine and doesn't have food.
Let's talk about
But
it.
we'll empathize with the I don't know with Simba who lost a father, but we won't sympathize or empathize with that black child in Chicago or New York who lost his father to violence. So media, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little media literacy. You sit down, you listen, you watch these stories, but they are literally given to us from real life situations.
Yeah.
And so now people can empathize with that, but they can't empathize with humanity. And so what I say to you, the person who cannot believe, is read more stories then.
Yes.
Listen to what's out there in the world. Like spend time to internalize a little bit more. And sometimes put yourself in the shoes of those stories of the real people that
Yeah.
you're listening to because it'll make things more real. It'll
Yeah.
make things as though when it does happen, you can start believing a little bit more. And realize that the stories that you see online, the fake stories and whatever, the Disney and the Cartoon Network, all of these, I don't know if Cartoon Network's still out there, but
I
but
don't know
all
either.
of, all of those stories are taken from real life situations,
Yeah.
for the most part, and we can learn from media literacy in order for us to also be able to connect to our human lives.
Thank you. That made me think of two things I want to insert here from like a more like research lens too. The first is that trauma, and it took me a long time to learn this, but trauma is not the actual thing that happened to you. Trauma
No.
comes from then on when you do decide to confront or heal it, it's from then people not believing that that happened to you. So what
Mm.
that feels like to us as humans is it feels like a betrayal. It feels like, well, I can't trust you because could you possibly trust me or love me if you're telling me you don't believe me and this awful thing happened to me? And it's because they have not perhaps met that type of ignorance, incompetence, or darkness. Let's call it what it is. Because as you stated earlier, and what I also believe is it's very similar. There's this great clip I love. I love so much of James Baldwin's work through the years as a writer myself. But he has this great clip. It's very popular and well known, but he's going on and on about as you're walking down the street and you look into the face of another person, you could be that cop. You could be that person. You could be that person arrested. And he goes through this whole level of that awareness. And I think sometimes because people have made this like it's so complex or so, no, there's a few key things. And here's the neuroscience part. This has been proven by researchers that if you have not been exposed to even different types of features or skin tones, by the time you're around 6 to 8 months old, you will already have internalized biases. So that is from a young age as far as physical exposures. And perhaps then if eyesight isn't there, then the sounds you hear, the language, the tones, the vibe, the energy of it. So all of that to say, when we know this, and then we also know from brain science that our neural pathways stop developing in our brains by the time we're around 22, 23. For males, it tends to be around 25. So there's a slight difference, but this is decades of research by multiple researchers that, from a neuroscience perspective, beyond that age, if you don't put yourself into situations, and I don't mean where you're highly uncomfortable or you haven't educated yourself, but if you don't take a trip and you go, oh, well, I don't really know what to expect. I got that kind of nervous, excited feeling. Or when you go into a space and you go, okay, let me scan the room. Okay, I'm the only person, maybe this shade in here. Like whatever the things are, that you're real with yourself about how you're feeling, because that's there to get you out of your zone of proximal development, comfort zone. So
Yeah.
basically, the only way as adults beyond 25 that we even open our mind truly from a neural pathways, you have to travel and you have to have new experiences. And
Right.
that can be through reading, but the best,
experience that you
Go to a
know.
coffee shop. Take a walk in a neighborhood you haven't gone to. I mean, do your research and everything. Make sure you feel comfortable. Make sure you're not going into situations where it's like, I want to be scared. No, I'm saying that little sweet spot where it's like, not like when you come home and you know exactly your routines and where everything is. That's comfortable. You could do that on autopilot. What do you think about that, like from your lens too? Because I know you read a lot and you also research. When you hear that, like, I think again, we think it requires all of this, but I want to know, with that in mind, I just wanted to add that there before the next question, which is you work with a lot of youth. You talk specifically about personal transformation, radical empathy, how to become more self-aware, all the things that are tied to cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence. So for schools who are struggling and they're like, well, we can't do SEL, or my state said I can't use these words, whatever those things are, I'm speaking more United States specifically first. Across the board, and you're based in Canada mainly as far as residential, what do you think that students need to be learning in school nowadays? Because we know that education is being reimagined, whether we want it to be or not, solely because of
That's,
artificial intelligence. So,
yeah.
what should the radical empathy guy, what should, no, no pressure, but what do you think? Because you're interacting, at the ground level with our youth.
So I'll say it like this. Your first question about the cultural competencies, when I went to Singapore, I was in a grocery store and like you said, it's not many people that look like me.
And
And
you're pretty tall. You're pretty
and
tall.
I'm very tall as well, especially compared to Singaporeans.
Yeah.
And so this guy comes up to me, he's like, Africa. And I was like, he has to be talking to me. So I turn around
You're like, is it me?
and he was like, Africa? And I was just like, of course, anyone could take that bad.
Yeah.
Anyone could be like, what, why? But for what? For what purpose did I need to do that? And so I told him, I said, no, 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 not Africa, uh, Canada, North America, and my parents, Haiti. And he said, okay, okay. The dude was inquisitive.
Yeah.
If I came in with a like charge at how dare you, who you talk? Number one, I mean, I don't like to say it like this, but sometimes it proves their biases in their minds, even though it doesn't prove anything. It's just, what if I was just in a bad mood, right? But
Right.
it proved their biases at that time. But also, I always believe that when you're out into the world, like, there's a certain way that uh, you need to act, you need to be in society. And so even if someone was being rude or messed up to me, even if that was his intention, again, I can't control what he does. I can't control what he says.
No.
Unless he's threatening my life, there's certain things that I will not do. And
Right.
so I get to choose how I react to the situation. And he was just inquisitive. And I mean, and then he asked me, how tall? I said 6'4". He said, I don't know what that means. I said 193. And he was like, so
Right. Metric versus, yeah.
it was,
Yeah. That's a whole
and
other communication
it's a
conundrum.
whole different community. Exactly. And so then we shook hands and walked away. That experience, if you read it, would be like, oh, cool. But for you to feel it and actually go through it, there's certain things that you can only learn and truly learn through experience. And so,
Correct.
as
Yeah.
much as we want to learn through research and through books, there's come a time where we have to go out, connect with people, talk with people, learn different cultures, sit down with individuals, and see the differences. Like, the only way for me to be able to have a better cultural understanding of the world around me and to actually have a true lens of radical empathy and a view of humanity is for me to sit down with people from all different parts of the world. That's the best way for us
And
to
all
empathize.
different beliefs, all different walks
Different
of life.
beliefs, all different walks. We might disagree on certain things. That doesn't mean we can't empathize together. That
I
doesn't
always
mean we
tell
can't
people,
connect.
do you ever disagree with your spouse? I mean, come on.
Like we,
Like, what are
we
you
disagree with
doing?
everyone around us. That
And this
doesn't
is
mean
a
we have
stranger you
to.
don't even know. Why are you going to take it personal?
Why are you taking it personal? Like, let's now get to a place where we can disagree without disregarding their humanity.
Right.
And that's what individuals need to get back to. No matter political views, certain, I mean, unless it's a views that is against their humanity, of course, man. Like there's certain points that you're gonna have to really attack on. But that doesn't again mean
Yeah.
that we disregard the humanity
Right.
of
In every situation. I mean, I think the other piece of that is again, back to your point about media literacy,
Mm,
and then we'll tackle the question about what you think kids should
yeah,
really be learning in schools, like as we continue to reimagine, because we are going to see such a rapid, especially in the next 5 years, whether it is uh like stuff coming out about extraterrestrial beings, artificial intelligence. Like we're
yep,
going to see a lot, and we are seeing a lot of wild, quote unquote, things. But it's also because we have this thing called the internet that has made stuff more readily available. These things have always been occurring, right? Whether
yep,
it's atrocities, whether it's cool new discoveries, this is since the beginning of time on planet Earth. So
right.
it's just that we have more access to it, and now there's also a lot more, nefarious motivations as to why certain things are on the news or whatever. But
Yep.
all of that to say, when we don't then examine those systems and we don't go to that ground level, it's also the fastest way you learn and grow in your own
Yes.
expansiveness, your own evolution, and your journey. I
Yes.
had a very similar thing happen actually, and I don't even need to say the country, but my guide for the day, and he was awesome. Like we talked about everything. He told me all about Hinduism and the type of Hinduism he followed. Like it was great. We were up in the mountains. I went to a volcano and stuff at the location I was. But he took my phone, and there was a temple that you could not, if you're considered unholy, if you're menstruating as a female.
Mm,
And one of the persons in my group who I had met up with was like, "Oh, just go in." I said, "No, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not gonna." They're like, "But you traveled like 20 hours to get here." I said, he told me what the expectation is. I can see inside from outside. There's other sites I've seen. He's going to take video for me. I'm okay. It's not about that for me, and I'm not going to cross that. This is the same guide who innocently, but if you weren't there in person, you were behind a keyboard or you were on, whatever, you wouldn't see the energy or context. You wouldn't know we had been traveling for 4 hours and talking that whole time. And he sees my wallpaper, which is my partner, who's black and had on sunglasses. And he goes, "Oh, rapper?" And I said, "No, that's my partner, but that's okay. Just go ahead and take a picture." But then in the same area, I was catcalled Kim Kardashian.
mm.
So, like, again, I can laugh about it because to me, it made sense. I was in areas and villages where they likely had never seen a person that looked like me and that was 5'9" and curvy and all these things. And they're associating America with rappers and Kim Kardashian. So if you even just unpack it a little bit instead of going, "Ah, how could
There we
you? What?" It's a frame of context. And if you don't have a conversation or you aren't able to go, okay, but that doesn't dismiss the powerful conversation we had had for 4 hours previously.
go.
So that's the other caution, I guess, with technology. So when kids are in schools, and as we look to this kind of new chapter, and we
Yep.
have Generation Alpha as the school age generation right now, what do you think they need to be learning in schools? I'm using air quotes because we know that even changed a lot after pandemic and how people view school, how they do school.
I believe that when we look at school and like the purpose behind school, and I'm going to use that same word, but I believe that we should be looking to help youth and students discover their purposes.
More of who they are.
Like that, the sole per when I look at education, if it's for me to memorize information, to retain information, to to learn it yet not use it, I think it starts to become a waste. And many kids, I've said this when I was a youth, I've heard this now still to this day. When am I going to use this? When am I going to put this into application? And as much as there are certain points that have been like, hey, Brian, you did actually use that in your future. It's not the same
Mm-mm.
because especially with the rapid movement of AI, we are in an information overload era.
Yep.
If information is the only thing that we are looking to give our youth, we are losing the very life behind education.
And then we
And,
even have people putting out books that say empathy is toxic at the same time.
oh, I saw that. Empathy
Hmm.
is toxic. Empathy is evil.
Hmm.
Empathy is not of God.
Yeah.
Literally, I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've seen it. Empathy is a weakness.
Yeah.
But when you sit down with kids and you really look at the fundamental root as to why someone needs to be educated, their education is in order for them to take something into themselves that they see to make some sort of difference within society.
And create in
Every
a way that only they could.
in a
You
way that
have
exactly in a
to
way
see
that
it and
they
live it
only
that
could.
way.
That's it. Because the only and I know some people like to refute this point, but if you are the only person that can ever be created like you, and you've been through your own specific experiences, life, views, brainwave, like
Yep.
everything is so distinct to this one singular individual. There are certain things, even if it's done multiple times by other people, there's a certain way that it can only be brought and shared through your life experiences
Yep.
by you.
Yep.
And so, if we want to get to this place where we want youth to really take on education, they have to see the purpose behind why this education will get them to where they want to be and how they can use it to fulfill something in their future. Because when you look at any, for instance, colleges, anything that we do, like the jobs, the careers that all of it is supposed to fulfill a purpose. And yet we don't listen necessarily look at it in that viewpoint. We just want to teach curriculum, give them information. But information without inspiration literally leads to a dissolution of our minds
Or
because
implementation or application. So then if you don't go use it places, but you sat in one of your workshops, but then I never go try someplace new to exercise radical empathy, then what am I doing?
it puts all of it to waste.
Yeah.
And so I truly do believe that purpose-driven education needs to be the way that we move forward with why we're doing the things that we do, and also like deeper critical thinking, deeper uh what when I problem solving, like spending time to really understand material, not just giving material, where kids are able to debate with one another, they're able to look at philosophical questions and be able to say with the teacher, I think you're wrong on this, and they're able to bounce back ideas. Like in a sense, it should be like a Mars Hill, right? Or you're sitting on Athens. You're able to dialogue with your professor, and your professor is saying, well, this is where I believe, and well, no, well, this is where it's coming from this side, and due to your wisdom and knowledge and understanding, not just your depth of information, which they can get on Chat GPT now,
Right,
you're
right.
able to dialogue deeper. But if we only think that it's about the curriculum, if we only think that it's about the information that we're sharing, we're losing it. We're losing the human skill, we're losing the level of communication, we're losing the critical thinking, and ultimately, like we want the kids to be able to navigate life. We want them to get to a place where they can take on what they have learned and be able to be better from where they have learned. And I'll tell you this. When I've been to countries in Asia, and I spoke to certain people, and they talked about how oh, education is so deeply uh implemented, right? Like they care about you getting the best possible grades in the world, especially when you're in element, especially middle school, high school, university.
It's
And I
very
asked them
programmed, very systematic.
very systematic, very programmed, and I asked them a simple question. I said, does that does that level of intense education make a difference for their lives when they become an adult? And they sat there and said, not really.
Mm,
And I was just like, whoa,
mm.
because a lot of them just go into like different types of factory work. A lot of not all of them go into depths of businesses and everything. Like there's a lot of people in Asia. When you think about it, there's a ton of people.
Hot.
And yet not all of them are at high lengths of success and everything of that. No, but when they're still in high school or middle school or university, it's pushed on them that
Yep.
the grades are the only thing that you need. And yet, when they figure out later on that that basically it was just for a certain level of image or a way that society has set it up for them, they get to this place where they still push it on their kids, but now their kids are sitting here and they're like, now because of technology, especially, they're seeing how other parts of the world are, and they're like, well, yes, I do believe education is important, but I want it to be useful for something.
And
And that's
also, if we find our purpose solely in a career path or job title, and now that's going to be going away, believe me, there will be
go away.
many things going away in the next decade. And people
Anything.
will look up. If you don't right now, you will look up. And I'm saying this as a person who transitioned out of working in schools to
Yep.
becoming a full-time entrepreneur and all the pains that can go with that because I had to look in the mirror and realize how much my worth was wrapped up in that. Because what happens then if that's pulled away, and like you're saying, where that conversation went, even when we look on a more global scale with the up and coming youth, this is where we have to name the difficult truths. And here's the
Yeah.
truth. Systematically, structurally, and systemically, our entire globe has been built on the forces of the wealthy,
Yep.
a very, very few wealthy, and this has been centuries. The
Mhm.
messages have been maximized through organized religion that has also been bastardized, sprinkled in with enslavement of multiple groups, oppression of multiple groups through all the ages. Hard stop. So when we realize we're bowing down to man's human made, which again, we all have these things within us, right? Just like that greatness that can be pulled out of every student, if you keep putting a shade over my light though, and you keep saying, yeah, but you're more suited for this because you're black, or you're more suited for this because you're Latina, whatever things we want to say, or you're labeled this and you have an IEP, oh, you're labeled this and you're gifted.
Stay in your
All
lane.
these things, if you can't look in the mirror and all that shit, I'm going to call it what it is, went away because it had to die in my life in different ways through the years too. I think this is a normal part of being human on earth right now because you're
Mhm.
being ushered into these systems that are not designed to actually elevate who we are. They are
Right.
designed to meet the demands of a government's workforce development and what need to be filled. All we have to do is study the patterns of what programs go into high schools. You could look at Indiana right now and who their politicians are working with. Okay. So I'm putting that out there because if you're a person who you are so exhausted because you're scrolling on your phone all the time, choose a book to read and start to examine one piece of your own beliefs. It could be about beauty, it could be about marriage, it could be about religion, it could be about sexual identity, it could be about history. I don't know. Start somewhere. And this is where I do get like, if we have that power, but I also see so many people, I'll give a prime example. Oof, I went back on my boycott of Starbucks because it was convenient. Ah! Okay, the guy, there's a guy who comes in. This is 90-degree heat earlier this week. I'm on my way to be with a client for the day at school, work with a principal team. This guy is thirsty. It's 90 degrees. They tell him he can't have water.
Yeah.
Now, if I would have been not reacting, I was not responding, I was reacting. If I wasn't reacting inside, I would have thought, oh, you go ask for the water because you're here and you paid already and give it to him. But I wasn't, right? Because I was reacting. And I asked the girl who was kind of mean to him and said, no, you have to be a paying customer or something like that. And when he left, I said, excuse me, when did that become a policy? What is that? Is that a policy from corporate? She's like, "Oh yeah, well, not my policy, but I have to enforce it." I said, "No, you don't. Who told you that? Oh, what's the new policy? So then before I left, I went to the manager, a guy, young guy, probably about, I don't know, 5 years younger than you or I's range. So not super young, but early 30s. And I said, sir, so I asked her earlier, and she said it's policy. She doesn't want to get in trouble. I said, so where do you draw the line? What if I came in and I was about to fall over from heat exhaustion? Are you going to deny me a cup of water? He's like, well, there are dire situations and there's not. I said, so does your policy outline that from the capitalistic overlords that run Starbucks, a $1 billion industry globally?
No, yeah.
And he goes, well, he literally, and I felt bad. I felt bad then because of my energy. He went, I said, sir, and I winked at him. I said, you don't have to do that. You don't have to listen to that. Nobody's going to write you up or get you in trouble because you gave a man who needed it more than any of us in here a glass of water. He was clearly had been strung out. He wasn't trying to hang out in your Starbucks. That is wide open, by the way. I'm one of two customers in there.
Mm.
So I'm if that isn't a highlight of what our world is, that happened this week, 2025. It's like that's what we have to be aware of when you're just like you said, information, information, information. And we never pause and then we just run autopilot. And I have to commute to work and then I got to go get my kids and then I get order out and
I'm telling yeah, that's real.
but how and then so globally and we'll wrap up with this question. You're encountering so many educators and youth. Are you
Yeah.
seeing the same pulse? You're based in Canada. I'm based in the States, Chicago area. Are you seeing the same pulse? I mean, because we're seeing stuff through media. I travel often, and so do you globally, but many of our listeners and subscribers don't, even though we actually reach people in about 50 countries typically. I know that that's also true for some of those people.
I
What are you
I
seeing
believe
the
that the
pulse on
world
like
is, I
humanity?
yeah, I believe that the world is lacking empathy these days. Just on a global stance. I do believe that there are certain like so for instance, even though there are certain countries that don't teach empathy as much, because it's so taught in their home and it's taught
Mhm.
in their culture, it's almost not even needed in a sense. And I'm being very cautious in saying that.
Right.
It's not that it's not needed, but you could feel that empathy throughout their culture, throughout the way that they are with people. And
Yeah.
of course, you have individuals or certain businesses or lives that are choosing to not move with that lens. But like for instance, I mean, I still haven't been to Japan, but I always hear about how Japanese culture is just so interconnected with one another. And so as much as they may not necessarily, and I think they actually do, because even in elementary schools, if I'm not mistaken, they teach on how to be towards the elderly. They teach on like certain skills that you're supposed to use outside of the school, how
Health
you're
health disciplines.
health disciplines, helping people. Like so these are things that are very crucial and they actually get to practice it as well.
Yeah.
Um, and so yes, there might not necessarily in high school be as much development on empathy, yet again, it's within their culture a lot of times. In North America, uh, we're so individualistic. We've separated ourselves as much as we might connect more with what like there's more homes around us. There's still a lot more walls and barriers around us as well too. And that sense of humanity, I believe, is truly disconnecting us. And so where empathy comes in, like for instance, I remember I did a speech not too long ago. I think this was in April and somebody came to me and said, "No, that was very heartfelt." And I felt like I was in your shoes, or I was walking, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, this is the whole empathetic
Like
approach, you know."
that's what I wanted.
That's exactly what I wanted. And he was just like, it was a young man, like 17-year-old kid, but he was one of those kids that you would have never assumed would have said that, right? Like he looked kind of, brawly, whatever, just not really about it. But he told me, he was like, it was really heartfelt, and I felt like I was walking in your story,
Mm,
and and I needed to see someone else's life a little bit more. And thanks for allowing me into your life.
mm.
And I think a lot of us, we have a hard time sharing because of what we talked about in the beginning, that some people don't believe. And then now when we get to this place where we do hear the stories, it's hard for us to connect because we don't necessarily want to put ourselves in that situation, because we ask ourselves, how would I be? And sometimes we say
Right,
it's too hard to think about it.
right.
And I always tell people, one of the worst phrases that we can ever say to somebody, and we use it all the time: I can't imagine how you would feel.
Oh,
I,
no, you can't.
we use it all the, yes, you can.
Have you ever said it back to somebody like that?
Yes, I've said
Yeah.
it exactly like that. The person was like, man, I can't imagine. I said, you can. I said, imagine it. I said, sit with it. Imagine it. Imagine losing your daughter. Imagine losing like, because like for me, I lost my daughter, and I sat there and saw it. I saw the whole thing. I was just like, what is, I, it felt like a movie.
It's
Like,
like
I'm
an out of
smiling
body
right now.
experience.
It's an
I think
absolute out
that,
of body experience.
that I want to say this really quick so people hear this.
Yeah.
When you have those experiences, sit with them, be with them, cut your energy off from people who you don't need to be around during that healing, because that is where you will find your healing and your connection with God to take you back to those moments, because you're seeing it and you're also seeing everything that goes on. And when you're living it, if you have not had, and I just, again, we have to search within ourselves, because all humans, we experience and encounter suffering in the same ways. It
Yeah.
might be different circumstances, different appearances, all the stuff, different countries we live in, but we're all having a very human experience with
Very-
very real emotions we have to confront that all go back
Yep.
to suffering and
Yep.
healing wounds that we either have within our bloodlines or that we pick up along the way from circumstantial. So we have to decide within ourselves every day. But that just hit me when you said that, because similarly, and you look back and it's hard. Like I get worked up thinking about some of this stuff because you put yourself back in there and it's so real. And when you're going through it, it's no, I can't describe it other than it's an out of body experience, like what you're
Yep.
describing, which is you're watching it, but you can't really believe it's your life.
Can't believe it. When that happened to me, I was in the hospital watching the whole thing,
Mm,
and I remember last year I was asked to do a vigil for all parents. Who this was probably my most favorite speech I've ever done.
okay.
It was a vigil for, I don't know if I would say favorite, but it was definitely the meaningful, most meaningful, and I was asked to do a vigil for all parents who have ever lost somebody, like a child in their lives.
Mm,
And I'm in a room of like about maybe 200 people. I don't know, not 200, no, it's not 100 people. And and I'm asking myself, like, what am I going to say to these people? I've never had to do this before, like this. As much as I've talked about my situation, because that happened in 2017, I was just like, man, I don't know how am I supposed to talk to them. And then something just came to me. It was like, you know what? Share your story from the third person point of view. And I shared the story of a man who is watching a movie of another person
mm,
whose person, it was daughter and everything, that like the life was perfect, and then the daughter passes away.
mm,
And then afterwards, I share how he tries to click off the movie and
mm.
turn off the TV, and he can't turn off the TV.
Just keeps playing over and
And
over.
just kept playing. But it wasn't even just the fact that it kept playing. He realized that this wasn't a movie. He realizes that this wasn't uh like a fictional situation. This was actually his life. And then I jump in and I say, at that moment, I couldn't turn off my TV. And the people, when I show you, like, the people just sat there like, I thought this guy didn't understand what I was going through. We thought you were just a speaker. Come to find out you're one of us.
Yeah.
And they told me, like, I don't share this to be like, oh yeah, I'm such a good, no, like, people, they came to me and were like, I've never had a speaker come in, and we've been doing this for 10 years. This was the best one that felt so connected to us because we know you understand what we're going through. The thing is, like, when we sit down with that, I imagined, because I was in my deepest pain at that moment, but I never forget that I imagined the situation of a father in Syria who
Mm.
uh, they were being bombed, and he's clutching both of his kids, and they're dead. And I was like, as much as my pain hurts, like, he is in pain. And I'm imagining now two kids, and I'm imagining living with them for anywhere between 6 to 10 years. And I'm like, and just losing them in that moment. Imagine it. Sit with it. And I know you don't want to imagine losing your child. You don't want to imagine losing your business. You don't want to imagine your car getting hit. You don't want to imagine someone,
We
being
don't go
publicly
to those
shamed.
steps, then something is still telling us, well, that could never happen to
It can
me.
never
And
happen to
what's
me.
underneath that actually goes deeper into racism and capitalism of there's something still inherently, and maybe that's just humanity and we all have to overcome it. There's still something that says, oh, but it won't happen to me that way.
It's a level
Oh,
of
you know,
pride.
like,
It's a deeper level of pride to
yeah,
believe that the situations that are happening within the life of others have have no recourse or no way that it would affect us too.
right.
And so, like, and I tell parents, like, who say, "Oh, that would never happen to my child. My child will never get hurt this way. My child will never get touched this way. My child will never." You, you do not know, and I need you to start thinking about and imagining what happened to them. Not to say you need it to turn into food. No, start thinking about what are some things that you are allowing that may in turn also allow certain people into your home. Like, for instance, when
Right.
they say, "Oh, like,
Right.
I don't let my kids go to sleepovers,"
Right.
and I'm like, because I've imagined that too many times. I've seen it too many times in my head. But even visualization, like doing that mindfulness practice, when you constantly see yourself doing so, it's also in a positive. When you're constantly seeing, like Michael Jordan
Yeah.
talks about
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time, Kobe talks about it all the time. When you're constantly seeing yourself doing something, and it actually happens, you put yourself in a position where you're a lot more confident because your brain doesn't know reality from the imagination.
Right.
And so
Right.
you're just seeing yourself making a game winner because you've already done it so many times in practice and it's so many times in your head.
Yeah.
So when you start imagining, it just allows you to see a perspective and allows you, like, for instance, I use imagination when I'm about to have a difficult conversation.
Same.
And so when I
I
jump in,
imagine all the different ways it could go wrong
it can go.
so that
I
I can
imagine
mitigate it.
and, but you know what happens? You start feeling certain
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this person said this, and your body just goes, and you're like, oh, okay, so I need to be able to calm down when this happens. And then when they say this, you're like, oh, you relax. Oh, okay, so I relax when this person does this. So I need to be able to push myself a little bit more in that. So just visualize it, like imagination, all of this, it helps us to connect deeper with ourselves. It helps us to connect deeper with people. It helps us to connect deeper with God. It helps, like, let us imagine more. Let
And
us
that's
connect.
what, like, the most recent adult level brain scan. So I can't imagine with the still formulating mind of a child up until 25. Most recent brain scans of people using Chat GPT, I think it was for like a year-long study versus those that didn't for their work, but in the way how they used it, right? So the people who used it as a support, like, this is going to edit my blogs, right? They used it as a true co-creation. Let me productive, like, have more productivity for myself so I can live life the way I want, versus those who said, oh, this is so simple, I don't have to think anymore. They, the way how the brain scans look, Bryan, after even just a year, I think it was less, but they were using like something crazy, like 70% less of their brain was still functioning compared to the group who used it responsibly. And so if this is adults and those are adult brains, and we think about that, what does that take away? That means we need to be with our youth, especially. This is just a charge to kind of close us out. Like we need to be instilling imagination and creativity and also curiosity. And those are the things that um there's this comic, he has this great bit about him and his nephew. And his nephew was visiting him and he said, "You know, what are we going to do next?" And he goes, "Well, why don't we use imagination?" And the
Mm.
kid goes, "What app is that?" And so, I mean, it's a comedy bit, but it's also very, very telling. Again,
Totally.
what we
Yeah.
do, whether it's the schools we send our kids to, educators, how we decide to teach and view students. Um, I just think that, again, for such a time as this, what you said really stood out to me, and I thank you for sharing so vulnerably. One final question, because you brought it up and it's hanging right here and it came to me. I had a colleague years ago who confided in me that his wife had had a miscarriage and
Mm.
it had like just happened. And he was at work a couple of days later doing stuff and he just casually like, "Yeah, I should probably do something for her." And he asked, right? He asked my opinion because he didn't know how to be there for her. This guy was older than me. I'm not even married at the time, right? Like it felt like, okay, well, he trusts me enough, but if we can get past that initial reaction I just had, which was true then, like, why is he asking me what he should do for his wife? What would you advise men? But it was a good question because it's where he was. Would you advise men, not because you get a gold star, you're the best at everything, but how would you advise men, especially younger husbands like yourself or partners, if you have a partner who is confronted with miscarriage, how would you advise them to be there for their partner? Because not only are you going through pain and feeling that, and then, you're speaking on it too, but you're processing that loss. You had that very real experience. And then so did your wife. And you're also there as their support. I don't know that a lot of 30, even 40 somethings our age were really taught how to do that. Um, what would you give as just a closing advice? And I'll probably clip this separately because it is such a big topic, but it happens so often. And I just don't see that many people talking about it, especially men.
I'll say it like this, like my wife, what she went through wasn't necessarily it wasn't a miscarriage. Um, you know, like the baby, she came out, like it was a whole process. And so
Thank you for
again,
that.
yeah, yeah, no, it's okay. Because I know a lot of sometimes people they just don't know that. So I just want to be clear on that too. Um, I'm gonna share what I did, and then I'm gonna talk about like the miscarriage aspect of it too.
Okay.
I there's like this push present that people give to their wives,
Mm,
and I still gave my wife a like a push present to make sure that she understood that yeah, like our daughter passed away after everything that happened, but that doesn't negate the miraculous, the powerful moment that you had in delivering our child. Uh, and a lot of and I fear that this is not an issue between men as much, but this is more so from what I've seen on the internet and what I've heard from other women is that they'll say, well, if you didn't push it out, it's not the same compared to a C-section and
mm.
stuff like that. And so,
Again, why are we trying to one up each other?
why are we trying to one up each other? Why
Yeah.
are we different levels, right? And so people will say, well, she didn't push the baby out; she had a C-section. Uh,
Hmm.
who cares? She delivered our child,
Hmm.
and yes, we lost our child due to what you call Vactral syndrome. Uh, but
Hmm.
it, it doesn't in any way, shape, or form put any less on the woman that she is
Hmm.
and power that she had, the miraculous power to deliver our child. And so I was very intentional on just being there for her, going through my pain as well, because I fully expected to be a father, uh, and and seeing my child, like I saw things that she didn't see,
Yeah.
right? It's like seeing that whole process of her of them trying to like put life back into her. I don't ever want anybody to go to see that. That's like that to this day scars me. But it's okay because it's like that's my experience. That's my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm glad she didn't see that, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it was, yeah. But
It
all
showed
that,
you it showed you a lot in probably what felt like an eternity, but was about, very fast as far as time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But all that to say, we listened to each other,
Hmm.
asked the right questions, and we were willing to make sure. Like one of the things that we did in that time, in fact, was I remember I told her I said 6 months, 6 months of not doing anything to hurt each other, you
Hmm.
know. And it's not like we intentionally hurt each other, but it's like
But
we were just very
couples, we get on each other's
get
nerves.
on each other's nerves. We say certain things. We
Yeah.
might not think about no, we were when I tell you in super intentional. And I can never go back at that time and say, man, why did she say that? And she can never go back at that time and say, why did he say that or do that?
That's the wisdom from
So
both
it
of you.
was just that time to just be able to really be there for each other in a pain that I don't fully understand because as a woman, it's different. And also as a pain that she won't fully understand as a man.
Yeah.
However,
Yep.
it's us being there together and working through it and working through that process and hearing each other out and talking it out, being able to communicate that properly. And so same thing with miscarriage. Uh, like at the end of the day, you may not have been there to feel what she's feeling, but give her an opportunity to share, to talk,
Right.
and literally tell her, invoke the conversation. Hey, do you want to talk about what's going on? And she could say yes or no. I'm almost guaranteed, at least maybe 80% of the time or 85% of the time, she might say, yeah, I want to hear, I want to talk
Yeah.
and she can express herself in such and that might be one of the greatest gifts that you can ever give some your wife or your girlfriend who had a miscarriage. It's the ability for her to express how she's truly feeling, but in all of that still
Without being judged,
without being
without
judged.
being labeled.
Nothing. It's just listening and not trying to fix the situation, not trying no, just let's just be here to hear each other out. And then you can also share how about what you're feeling. And if you're not feeling much, that's okay. But you can still show her the appreciation and the love that she deserves, no matter what the situation. And so I think there's still ways to, and if she loves gifts, give her a gift. If she loves, like still show her that she is loved and appreciated. She's not less than in any way, shape. Because I know a lot of women go through that and they believe that they're less than because they received them, they had the miscarriage. You're
Again,
not
culturally, like you even mentioned, culturally, that's such a big thing
less.
that I've heard through the years with friends going through these things of whether it is having a child die, having stillborn children, or miscarriage, regardless of what the things are surrounding it. That's also something that it shows how little people have explored. There's entire countries where it's like 98% of the people you're scheduling a C-section because that's how they do it.
I
And
do it.
it's less risk of disease, all the kind of thing for whatever reason. I know Egypt is that way. There's countries in South America that would like, and that again, it still says that why would we need to say, oh, vaginal versus C-section is so like it's a again, if we don't pause and ask ourselves as humans, and like you said, if you're a guy, if you're not willing to even just say, hey, do you want to talk? Why are you not willing to do that with the same person that you put a baby inside?
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot,
I
right?
mean, but I know why. Like I'm being a little facetious. I know why, because we get scared of what scares us or we haven't dealt with in our own lives. But I appreciate you sharing that wisdom because I have had different situations where men have asked me, and I'm like, also, you're assuming that I would know, and I have not had a miscarriage.
Mm.
So, like, that
No,
he then shows the bias of like, oh, let me ask Justine. She's very open, but she's also a female. Okay, but like it's the thing of we make these assumptions, we jump to thinking we know this person because we see their social media or something, and then we don't do the due diligence, meaning listen to them, ask them
Yep.
personal questions, ask them professional questions, whatever, but connect and don't just go, oh yeah, well I know she's this way because she does this. Well, no, you don't. No,
Mhm.
you don't. But we lie. We have, I think that's what a lot of our society right now, we've lied to ourselves to go, okay, well, yeah, I know this is the way the world is, and I'm just not going to branch out. If
That's
if
it.
people have the privilege to do that in different ways, which we all do in different ways.
Yep.
Final thing, I know you have some big talks coming up. You're actually going to be giving your biggest keynote
Yes.
to nearly 1,000 educators across the
So
district.
1,000 in-house, but they're branching it out to every single educator in that moment. So to the whole district. So we're looking at anywhere between about 4 or 5,000 teachers, educators, staff, administration, everybody. So yeah, I'm
Awesome.
really excited about it. I'm really excited. It's gonna be a great time.
Good. Well, that's in a couple of weeks. We're sending you
Yes,
good vibes, and I know you get to be in the Chicagoland area in October. Um,
yes, yes.
but is there anything else? You and I are also we're getting some things started with our school communities, which
Yes,
is really
yes.
cool because I know we can connect that to our YouTube channels and stuff. Um, is there anything else, or like where should people follow you most? I know you're pretty big
Yeah,
on IG and TikTok as
especially
far as like
TikTok.
your reels and
Yeah,
your video content.
my my TikToks, but the TikToks are just very authentic me. It's not as professional and edited, but that's what they like. They don't want that, edited and professional type of vibe. And so you can find me on BSL, it's literally BSL Speaks on every platform now. IG, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and then also I'll be creating a school community that's going to be coming out by the end of this month. That's all focused on people who work with youth, and so this could be educators, youth mentors,
I'm signing
community.
up.
Thank you, thank you. And like anybody who works with youth from any different capacity. You could be in juvenile detention. You can be in YMCA's, but it's all about First of all, coming together as a community, realizing the power that we have, but also being able to learn from each other, different skills, different things that we're learning from different parts of the world, and also finding ways to be able to make a positive impact and truly build the youth. And so the tagline ultimately is this: we're building leaders to shape leaders. Because if we really
Mm.
think that we want to help develop the youth of our society, we have to first build ourselves. And so
Mhm.
we're going to be sharpening iron on this platform. And it's not going to be very expensive at all. It's going to be $20, especially for the first few people who sign up, first 50 people who sign up is going to be $20. But this is going to be a worthwhile investment. But when I say investment, it's basically don't go to Starbucks twice in the week. So I
That's
really
what
hope
I
that.
think about with pricing right now too. Like, just don't go buy two drinks, and there
Oh
you
my
go.
God, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So honestly, like this is going to be a wealth of information because it's not only from me, but it's going to be from multiple people who are coming in. But I'll be a lot. There's going to be every day is going to have different scripts, different prompts, different things that we're doing,
Cool.
and ultimately, uh, like radical empathy will also be strongly put out through this because that's what I do. So if they want to learn more about that, they can reach out to me as well. But my website is bslspeaks.com. And
Okay, perfect.
anybody wants to get me to come and speak to their schools or organizations or conferences, I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, I am certainly grateful not only for your candor and your vulnerability, but your friendship, your collegiality, and for spending time with me on this podcast today.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
wait, do I sound like AI? In a world where you could be anyplace else. If it tries to tell me that somebody writes like that every time, and never mind. In a world so fast paced. Okay. I'm gonna get off your all screen, but thank you, listeners, subscribers, wherever you're digesting this. I'm definitely gonna make this into multiple clips and stuff too, so you're gonna see different sound bites throughout the next few months. But I will have fun chopping this one up. And thank you, Bryan, for being here. You all always check below because I always put all the guests' links and anything that they've mentioned in the links. And finally, let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Take care until next time on Love Learning You. Bye bye.